was born February 26, 1928, and he currently lives in Elmwood, Nebraska. And he was in the Second World War and was in the Army Signal Corps. And the cameraman is Quentin Jake. Okay, the first couple of questions we have. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted. The opportunity arose when I was a senior in high school to enroll in something called Army Specialized Training Reserve Program, ASTRP. And as a result, you had to have, first may I say, you had to have a certain grade level at school.
Yeah.
Percentage in your class. You had to be an upper 10% in your class. And I was too young to be drafted and taken in normal sequence. We'll get to the rest of that a little bit later.
What year did you enlist?
1945, that's the year I graduated from high school.
Okay. Where were you living at the time?
I was living on the farm with my parents, which was out north of Highway 34 on 402nd Street, as it's now described.
So was that in Elmwood then?
It's the Elmwood territory. It's 2 miles east and a mile and 3/4 south of Elmwood.
Okay, why did you join?
Patriotism, mostly. We were involved in a life and death struggle to see what kind of a government we were going to have. And given those circumstances, you didn't get over that feeling very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Why did you pick the service branch that you joined?
They were the ones offering this program, and it offered college work. And would you care to know what transpired then?
Yeah.
We were taken to a land-grant college, federal land-grant college at Brookings, South Dakota. That's an ag college. And any school that the government starts under the land-grant arrangements is maintained by the federal government through thick and thin. Well, we were in thin. There weren't any boys in school. They were in the Army. And so the government was obligated to keep the school going, pay the professors and the administration to run the school anyway. And so this program was offered to advance education to common people and keep the college going at the same time. And we took physics and mathematics and an accelerated course. That means it was faster than usual. And also other history, English, and the common main courses in universities at that time.
We're gonna teach you something. Do you recall your first days in the service?
Oh, I believe so, yes. Went down to Fort, I think I signed in up here at Omaha, and then they transported me to a location in Kansas where everyone goes that I cannot surface right now, but everyone that went to service went there. All services,
Yeah.
they went there. And then you were directed from there to where you go. That is incorrect. My first times in the service, I didn't go down there. That was when I went on active duty. this educational experience was called reserve. I was in a reserve, and couldn't go on active duty until I became 18. And at that time, there was not any kindergarten, and people born in the wintertime graduated when they were 17, and those born in the summertime graduated when they were 16.
Oh, so
And
you,
my wife graduated when she was 16 and had full nurse's training and was working in the doctor's office when she was 21. And the doctor's office in Elmwood, which is not incidental to this interview, but sideline on the age accomplishments at that time.
okay, what did it feel like to be in service?
Oh, it was just a natural for me. They tell you what to do, everything, and I was glad to do it. I grew up in a family that had respect for the military. My father was not in the military, neither were any uncles or anything, but the military was accepted as a protection for our way of life.
Yeah.
We lived in a free country, and we greatly respected that privilege and honor to live in a free country.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about your boot camp or training experiences.
Okay, the one thing more on the educational part of it before we were turned 18. I was very accelerated. We took the equivalent of 2 semesters of work of schooling between early September and middle of February. And in that mathematics class, we had college algebra and trigonometry in the same class period at an accelerated rate. And when it came time to study in the evening, they blew a whistle in the dormitory, and you sat down and you studied. And you didn't get up and walk around, kid anybody. Everything was military style. It was, you applied yourself to your studies. I have had some education since, and I know that those things don't exist in normal life.
Yeah.
But that's how we were able to accomplish so much in education, was because it was enforced discipline. Then after those equivalent of a couple of semesters of work there, schoolwork, you were taken into active duty, and that involved something called basic training. And you learn to adapt to military life and assist in communal living, it would be your words today. You disciplined each other through something called capital punishment. If it wasn't successful to restrict you because you misbehaved, they would restrict the entire dormitory. And pretty soon you caught on that you will do things the military way, because your fellow military people will tell you don't do that again, or you may not breathe very well for a while, and so you catch on. And those things all were kind of normal to me. It was nice people. I remember earlier in the interview I said it was the upper 10% of high school classes. You got the people that would study. You got the people that had a little background to them, knew which way was up and which way was down. And pursued that in schoolwork. And then even in our signal corps, that is quite technical. I was in something called cryptography. That is coding and decoding messages. And in the service, everyone is given a number of it would be called mental capacity. And you had to have quite a large number to be in cryptography. I'm not a qualified cryptographer. I never did go on I never did do that after I got out of training. But we're talking about basic training here, and it was just learning survival with weapons and living dormitory style.
Okay, so it was more of a schooling type process?
Yeah, it's called training. Training is the word, training.
Okay. Do you remember your instructors?
I remember a few officers, non-commissioned officers, that would be sergeants and corporals and that type. I never did accumulate any rank as on active duty. When I was on inactive duty up at Brookings, South Dakota at school, those of us who applied ourselves more were given the privilege of marching. The others, being in charge of marching to class, we had to march on the streets to get to class, and I rose as far as I could go then. But as you recall, there were just millions in the Army and the Navy and in the military and Marines, and they all had to be discharged after the war. Well, it turns out that I joined about the day that the war was over, and that's why the discrepancy in my age and being in World War II. But there was no sure thing that it was going to be over. The war was going on when I signed up, but it came to a conclusion soon after that. But I don't want to compare myself to people that were in the war fighting. I was never fighting. I was never out of the country at all. I just became qualified to be into coding and decoding messages if ever I was needed.
Okay, so you served in World War II, and where exactly did you go? The travels with the military were within this country, and from Fort Riley, Kansas, where everyone reports that goes to the service, into the Army, I was sent to Louisiana for basic training, and from there to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey for training in Signal Corps, as I had described, and then was shipped to San Francisco Bay, the very Stoneman in California, the upper far end as you could go in San Francisco Bay, awaiting shipment. And I was going to be shipped to China. Well, China's a mystery now. It was much more of a mystery then. They hadn't accomplished in medicine as much as they have now, and they're still generations behind on medicine. They were more generations behind them. And it shows I wasn't really highly qualified for the work
that I was trained to do, or I would have been offered a job in better places. My friends were sent directly to the Pentagon, where they went into coding and decoding messages in the Pentagon. And that's a great honor. They were more accomplished people. And then it became evident, I was told, that anyone could get out of the service if they had a letter of acceptance from a university. And so I wrote home, and my parents arranged for me to be enrolled in the University of Nebraska, and that's when I was out of the service. Just a short while, a year and a half, is about all I was in.
Okay, do you remember arriving to these places and what it was like?
Oh, not that specific. I'm not known for a memory. I'm known for talking as I go and making up a few things for humorous reasons. That's not as serious as I said, but I know you come from people that have humor in their family background too. But I don't have a great photograph memory. But we were not mistreated. The Signal Corps treats their people very well. We didn't have to do some of the things that the infantry people did. The infantry are the hand combat people. And if there's any pushing and shoving done, eyeball to eyeball shooting and so forth, the infantry does that. The Signal Corps transfers messages.
Okay, so you were more in the
Signal Corps, and I liked every minute of it.
intelligence part of the...
It isn't quite intelligence. That's the next one up. I was 800 and something for a number, and intelligence was another higher number. That is a higher number. And there was a man here at Murdock with the name of Mark Stoke that was in intelligence, and Don Hollenbeck's brother, Don Hollenbeck from Elmwood, his brother was in intelligence and is buried in Arlington Cemetery.
Okay.
Greatly admired man in the military.
Did you see any combat?
No, I was not in at a time when there was combat. If I'd gone to China, there could have been a possibility of it, but the combat was over. The war had been going on for 4 years, 41 to 45. And they did it upright. If we had not used the atomic bomb, by the way, there would have been a lot of combat. And it would have been a terrible, terrible thing.
Okay, do you have some favorite memories that you would like to tell me?
Oh, on the lighter side, when we were in Brookings, South Dakota, the military boys there seemed to get along well with the ladies that were at school, as they do here in Murdock. There aren't any military boys here, but I mean, there was an attraction. And I was kind of a young and innocent farm kid, so it would be called a conversational attraction. That's the word I made up. And you're acquainted with it. You kids know what conversational attraction is, even though you've never heard of it. You just enjoy talking to people. And so I enjoyed a little of that at the Ag College in South Dakota in Brookings. And the training in the military was all comfortable and pleasant. We had to sleep in tents out in wide open country of Louisiana, and you know, it had to rain some nights and so forth, but it was nothing unbearable. But I know of people who went through training like that did have some bad experiences. I didn't have to have any bad experiences in the military. Military people were logical people, that if you did what they said, they treated you exceptionally well. The people got in trouble with the military were the ones who would resist instructions. You cannot do that in the military. You do what they say, and they reward you well.
Did you receive any medals or citations?
Oh, the only one that would count would be marksmanship with a rifle. The strange thing about that is that I don't think I had handled a firearm more than 2 or 3 times in my life, and had shot at 2 or 3 rabbits with a .22 that didn't belong to the family. It was borrowed from a neighbor. So I didn't know anything about firearms. And so when I was in class and they handed us our rifles and then started to tell us about them, this was all in basic training in Louisiana, I paid attention because I didn't know. And I just absorbed every single stretch of what they had to say, and aiming them, you know, every rifle aims differently. You kids wouldn't know that, but they're all, the sights are all a little bit different. The classes of rifles, each class is a little different. Well, I didn't know that. So I paid attention to what they say, and I held it just like they said. And when you get to a certain place, you just squeeze, and it worked. And I got a medal. And my friend, who they call a buddy, every 2 people had to have, every one person had to have another one called a buddy. And that's so helping finding out if people were all there, you know, all the time, and assist in the emergencies. And he knew all about rifles. He came from Durango, Colorado, and been bear hunting and mountain lion and bobcats and more big game hunting. He knew all about rifles, so when they got to telling him about it, he didn't pay attention. He was thinking about girlfriend Janie back home. And when they came out on the rifle range and were shooting, he didn't get a medal, and he was humiliated. He was much humiliated. And then he got a letter from Janie, or her name, whatever her name, and she had started dating another man. He was ready to abandon the military in a disgraceful way by just leaving, and that's against the law, and you can't do that. And I talked him out of it. I'm quite a talker now, but I was more of a talker then. I was preparing to talk to a lady who's marrying me, you know, later, and so you acquire talking skills, conversational skills, and I was able to talk him out of abandoning his career in the military. And his parents were very grateful. And I happened to talk to his mother on a trip to Colorado. The family was in a motel near his small hometown. And I got up early in the morning and made my way to that town and to their family ranch. And I had to go in, have a big breakfast, including apple pie. And you've never had a breakfast until you have a rancher or farmer breakfast that includes apple pie. Then you've had a breakfast.
Okay, when you were in the military, how did you stay in touch with your family?
It was all with letters. There was no email, and it was all U.S. mails. A telephone could be used, but there was reluctance there was, we all grew up in the country, out in the country, farmers. Reluctance to use long distance, it costs money. This is impossible for you to comprehend at this time. But the cost was greater than it is now for long distance. You talk practically free now on a long distance. You didn't then, and it was expensive. And there wasn't a telephone at every desk and at every bedside and all that. It was a commotion to use a telephone. But the mail was free. I don't think it cost the military anything to use the U.S. mails. Well, it doesn't yet.
Okay, what was the food like there?
What was what?
The food like?
Food was great in any part of the military I was in. I had all good food. Part of this is just an attitude. If you were a picky eater at home and didn't like the food your mother picked very well, you would be a picky eater, a picky eater in the military, and you wouldn't like all the food in the military. Well, I appreciated what I had at home, and I appreciated what I had for food in the military. It's well prepared food, but I wasn't in combat conditions. And so there was never any doubt whether I was going to have a meal. It was always had a meal and had good food.
Did you get 3 meals a day?
Yeah. There could have been some alteration in timing when we were out on what's called bivouac. That's training, in basic training, out in tents and making believe you're in battle. There could have been a slight alteration in timing then.
Okay, did you have plenty of supplies?
Yes, worlds of supplies. Everything fit. I had a 28-inch waist and 34-inch trouser length and size 12A shoes, and always had plenty of clothing, nice warm clothing in the wintertime and comfortable clothing in the summer. Yeah, we were well supplied with clothing.
Okay, did you ever feel pressure or stress?
Separating from your family when you're 17 years old brings on stress. You're approaching that age. I don't know what age you are now. I don't want to know. I am qualified to say, though, that you're close enough that you wouldn't care to be disassociated from them for several months, September to February, as I was. And, it was September to, February up in South Dakota, but my folks drove up and saw me once. And then in the basic training, that was a little later, like March for 6 weeks, and then on to the East Coast for training. That's when I got hit the hardest on feelings on the East Coast. That's a faster pace of life. You don't feel this calm, relaxed farm agricultural setting on the East Coast. Everybody's running full blast. They don't care about you. They don't care about you. They don't care about you at all. And if you're 17 years old, that affects you very much. If you're 27 or 37, you can handle it. But we were quite young. And we weren't raised in St. Louis and Kansas City. There were men amongst us that were, and they weren't as badly affected. But I saw a Christmas program put on for the military at this Fort Monmouth in New Jersey. And it was a great relief to hear what was going on somewhere besides Fort Worth.
Was there anything that you did for good luck?
No, I'm not inclined toward thinking about good luck. I play some recreational cards with some men over at Elmwood, the senior center, and they are separated out by two groups. Nobody knows who's in what group, but some of the men think that card playing is just all luck, and others think that it's all skill. And we jokingly refer to that as if you win, of course, it's skill, and if you lose, it's because of luck. But no, I'm not a connoisseur of conversations about luck.
Okay, did you have entertainment of any sort when you were in the military?
Yes, I'm not, at that time was not an entertainment man. I was quite inclined toward religion, and I was born and raised in going to the Methodist church, and we had brothers in the church that kind of believed in living the straight life, as you've been influenced by your religion to religious association. And I tried to live a straight life. And so I did. It kept me out of bars and or other offerings of entertainment. They would have to be on the Army premises. We weren't allowed to go off of the Army premises, off of the base, and go into the other towns. You kids, what grade in school are you?
Eighth.
Oh, wow. Are you?
Yep.
I believe I was told over the telephone it was an 8th grade interview. That's quite young. We were told of bad things that could happen to us if we went to town. And at that time, it was more prevalent. The bad consequences of promiscuous living were more prevalent then than they are now, because there wasn't as much association with antibiotics and methods of controlling disease as there is now. And so it kept us quite regulated. You see, until a person is of age, today as well as then, if you're in the custody of someone else and you're not of age, they're responsible for every step you take. As you know, when kids go into college, until they're of age, they have to stay in university dormitories, and they are quite regulated compared to just open housing.
Yeah. What did you do when on leave?
I came home. We didn't have leave from those regulations other than just weekends. We didn't have training during the weekend, but we didn't leave. I didn't. I never left anything unless I was on the way to somewhere else and I got to come home some. From South Dakota, I came home, then went to Kansas and on to Louisiana. And from Louisiana then on up to Signal Corps training, we didn't get home. We went directly by train. That was a long 3-day train ride. Steam engines, those are steam engine days. Smoke, and the cinders came right in the windows when the wind was right.
Do you recall any particular unusual events?
Oh, no, I don't. I didn't have any bad experiences, I told you before. The Army treated us well, and partly because we had a partially well-dressed, partially well-disciplined group of men. There was a time when a Native American was influenced by drinking alcohol and came bursting into the dormitory one night. They call them barracks in the military, into the barracks. And you probably know this, but you're going to find out if you don't. The Native Americans didn't have alcohol until the white people came over. So they are more influenced by alcohol yet today than other races. And if they have just a little bit of alcohol, it makes them intoxicated and unpredictable. And we had some rare instances where a man came in and had unpredictable and unexplainable behavior that was threatening.
Okay, what did you think of officers or fellow soldiers?
They're all great people. The officers carry more responsibility, and they're obligated by the rules. The commissioned officers are obligated by the rules not to associate socially with the other military personnel in all branches. And it's for good reasons. When they get into something like combat, if a man tells you to do something that could cost you to sacrifice your life for your country, you can't be influenced by friendship. And so there's reasons for all of these things. I had great association with them, and they were all fine people. And I didn't know any of the officers, of course, personally, just for the reason I just gave. That's prevented.
Did you keep a personal diary?
No, I didn't. I might have started one when I was younger in high school or 8th grade, as you are. We didn't have junior high then. We had 8th grades and then 4 years of high school. But it was so moot and uninspiring that no one would have cared to read it, I don't believe. Coming from a farm background, there'd be more comments about the weather than anything else, and I didn't date anyone in high school. And so there wasn't much of anything to write about in the diary.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
No, I don't. I remember a non-commissioned officer telling me that if I could assemble a letter of acceptance from university, that I could be released. I think you might be searching there for a day when the war ended, something like that, more exciting. Since I was in after those days, I never ran on to one of them. I never had occasion to be on one. The day that, about the time that I joined, Germany had already given up. And about the time I joined, Japan gave up. And that's all there was to the war, really, was Germany and Japan. But when the war started, no one knew what was ahead. We didn't have a large enough military to carry on a war in 2, 3, 4 areas at a time. And so we didn't know the consequence of it. Germany had run over everybody in Europe, and for all we knew, they could come over and run over us. And so it was immense loyalty and patriotic feelings that stirred you to want to do something to save this way of life. It's unprecedented. There's never been a country that offered freedom like this one did and does.
Where were you when you left the service?
I was in San Francisco, awaiting shipment to China.
Okay, what
Rode
did you...
Rode the, one of the great Union Pacific passenger trains home, city of San Francisco.
What did you do in the days and weeks afterward?
Oh, it would not be of particular interest to anyone. That was in December. In February, I had enrolled, as I said, in the university and went to school. No, it'd be in January. The second term of the university starts in January. And then I jumped right into farming. My father farmed and I helped. And it was just the way of life of our family. My father came from New York and didn't do much farming there, but he and my mother met in Lincoln and got married, and my grandfather owned land here in Cass County where we lived, and so farming was our way of life.
How long did you attend the university?
Not very long. I think I had a total of 3 semesters there. The family didn't have money to spend on that, and I went nearly as long as the military or the government offered education to match your days in the service. More or less, at their discretion.
Did you join a veterans organization?
Yes, I belong to the American Legion. I have belonged after they decided that I was qualified. When I first got out of the service, they didn't consider that worthy of allowing me to join the American Legion, but they changed their mind later. And I did join, and I haven't kept up my membership as well as some of my friends, but I think I have, a total of, 20, 30 years in the American Legion. Of course, some of my friends have 50 and 60.
So did you farm after the
Yes,
war
I
to the
farmed.
rest of your life?
I farmed.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Oh, no, I had a good attitude toward the military anyway, and I was not disappointed at all. It all fell into place the way I thought it would, and it's logic. It's logic. I was raised in a family that had some intelligence and the employment of logic in their reasoning process. And the military does also.
Does your veterans organization hold any activities?
Not very many, no. I'm still not inclined toward every recreational activity that's available. My recreation takes place during the day. I go to different places for coffee and talk to different men. And we're too old to drive wherever we want to in the evening, and so we don't get to places, whether the military or the Legion or whoever would sponsor it or not. Those days are just over for us, but we don't regret it. We still have a peaceable life that compares favorably with people who are ill-disposed to live in regulated circumstances.
Do you attend any reunions?
No, that's for the people that were more or less in combat. Those reunions are for them.
How did your experiences affect your life?
Oh, there's no way to compare. It's kind of like comparing your pleasure at the present moment with your new car. You don't know how it would compare without the new car because you just have the one to talk about, the new car. You don't have this one over here to live. So it was with me. I lived with the experience of the military and was pleased by it. And it was a vulnerable time in my life. I don't think any ill effects would have taken place if I hadn't been in the military. But it's a time, if you're 17 and I would have gone to university a little more quickly, but I don't know how long I would have been in, even though I was only in 3 semesters. But I did receive 2 more semesters of schooling up in the military. It was good for me. It was good for me. It was not bad. There was nothing bad about military in my life. I didn't. The ill effects that you hear of military, you know, might be kids taking up with substances that they shouldn't have. We didn't hear about that then. There was not dope being sprung around. You wouldn't last 30 seconds with that at that time. Things were in very good hands. There was the usual amount of alcohol consumption, and tobacco probably was used more then than it is now. That was just a given. I didn't happen to smoke that time. I smoked possibly a few cigars, you know, 1 a week or something. I took up smoking cigars as a result of wedding celebrations called chivarees, going to people's houses after they'd been married, and knocking the doors and awakening them, and they come out, invite you in, and you have some ice cream for the ladies and tobacco or candy for the men. And my parents both smoked, and so tobacco was a natural way of life. But I don't smoke now. Had a bad car accident last February, and was in the hospital for 81 days and got over smoking. Didn't drink coffee at that time, and I felt better ever since the day that I gained the consciousness. I was unconscious for 17 days, and then I transferred to a recuperation type hospital. I can't name it here because it'd show favoritism, but you know which one it is. And it's a great place, great place, great place. I've been better ever since, and I feel fine now.
Glad to hear that. Is there anything that you would like to add?
I think I kind of covered it as I went. I would like to say that I wasn't a typical military person in World War II. Most of the people my age didn't have any association with the military until the Korean War. And then they would have been of age and time, and they went to Korea. And I had friends that did. And I just happened to go a little earlier at the end of World II. And I've never regretted it. Every moment has been, that I was in the service was a comparative pleasure.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I have for you today, so thank you for your time.
You're a really amazing person. I
You
really
too.
have enjoyed talking to you.